Okay. Poetry Million Man March by Maya Angelou. Note on the poet. Maya Angelou, born Margaret Ann Johnson on April 4th, 1928, was an American author and a poet who has been called America's most visible black female autobiographer by scholar John M. Braxton. See, what do you understand by this term, visible black female autobiographer? See, when it comes to American literature or American history, you should consider one thing in mind, is that of racial discrimination. See, people from various parts of the world were migrated and or forcefully taken by the colonial powers, and they made them slaves in their country, homeland, or a new continent, new territory. So America is also called as a New England. So people who are living in Britain those who wanted to move to a different place, they chose America. Okay, and they took these black people from the African countries, Asian countries, as slaves. So later, when that generation perpetuated, that particular generation also experienced this racial discrimination. Even today, there is racial discrimination in America. So what is important about Maya Angelou is she is the black female autobiographer. So she is not just a poet talking about or writing about somebody else's experiences. She has written about her own experiences. Autobiographer, what? One who writes about one's life. Female, see here it is, Maya Angelou in a way is discriminated twice. One for being black, other is for being a black woman. Okay, so her situation is even more pathetic when compared to a black man. So this thing you should keep into consideration. Discrimination on the basis of race, that is black, and discrimination on the basis of gender because she is woman. Why she is discriminated twice? Because let's say a black man is discriminated on certain aspects. Let's say a work is delegated to a black man. Okay, he in turn delegates to his wife or any of the female members of his family, or it need not be a female member of his own family, it could be any black woman. Therefore, you consider these black women are discriminated twice when compared to that of black men. She is best known for her series of 6 autobiographical volumes which focus on her childhood and early adult experiences. See, any experience which is related to childhood or early adult experiences, that is see, most of us would feel happy looking at lovebirds inside the cage, okay, or birds in zoo or in captivity. But she gave a different perception. We all think that this particular parrot or any parakeet is singing inside or talking with us, or lovebirds are enjoying inside the cage. So she gave a different interpretation. The way she looked at the cage bird is very much different. She thought that the bird is making noise not because it is happy, it is not singing there, it is making noise because it wants to be freed. So she says the caged bird sings of freedom. It's not that the bird inside the cage is singing out of happiness. It is singing out of sadness. It wants to come out of the cage. And see, bird, the main instinct of the bird is to fly. Okay, but you are keeping it inside the cage where it can't even fly. So it's like we human beings are imprisoned inside one room or inside one compartment for a lifetime. So she gave a totally new, different perspective. Tells of her first 17 years. Means the volume, she has written many autobiographical volumes, 6 autobiographical volumes. In that, this volume, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, deals with her personal life. That is, until she attained the age of 17, what all she experienced, that she has mentioned there. It brought her into conversation with many as there was some network issue. And she was even nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for her 1971 volume of poetry. Just give me a cool drink of water for a die. Angelo was a member of Harlem Writers Guild in the late 1950s, was active in the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement means fighting for the rights of citizens. It could be equal treatment of both the races, white and black, or having equal access to public places. See, if you are aware of the history of India, Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation. Himself was discriminated in South Africa because he belonged to a black race, non-white race. He was denied permission to enter into a first class railway compartment. So like those and even women voting rights, education, all these come under civil rights movement. And served as northern coordinator of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Dr. Martin Luther King is a prominent name in black rights movement. With the publication of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Angelo was heralded as a new kind of memorist. Memorist means she memorized, no, no, rather than saying memorizing, she jotted down what she experienced in her life. One of the first African American women who was able to publicly discuss her personal life. Note on the poem: the Million Man March speaks of the slave days and what possibly enslaves the blacks till today. So what she's saying is not just about the past, but what these people are experiencing even today. The poem is written in the hope to end the discrimination against black people and for black people to receive the same civil rights as the white. As I said, it could be access to education, drinking water, access to public places, voting rights, all those aspects. The poem starts with the injustice and effects of slavery on black people. Then it ends on the note of spiritual renewal and bonding of all black people. So this is what she writes. This is what Maya Angelou highlights. Maya Angelou initially talks about the discrimination experienced by black people and also says how they can renew, how through the bonding amongst black people. So glossary, you should be aware of glossary because some of the terms are African origin and which we may not be aware of. Braids or more interlaced strands. Most of the girls will know about it. Anguish, severe mental or physical pain or suffering. Indifference, lack of interest, concern or sympathy. Preen, congratulate or pride oneself. Imposting, falsely framing. So these are the comprehensions that you should be aware of before reading the poetry. What is the poet trying to say in the poem Million Man March? What does the last three lines of the Million Man March remind you of? What is the poet talking about in the verse? The hells we have lived through and live through still. What is the figure of speech used here? Discuss the imagery used in the poem. You have to focus on the images that are mentioned. Explain how Maya Angelou uses the theme of spirituality for the empowerment of the blacks in Million Man March. So with this, we'll start with the poetry. Lesson 8, Million Man March, Maya Angelou. The night has been long, the wound has been deep, the pit has been dark, all the walls have been steep. So here, as we got to know from the note on the author, that this particular poetry, Million Man March, set of her volumes, Why the Caged Bird Sings. So here she is describing about her personal experiences of being a black woman. So the night has been long, the wound has been deep, the pit has been dark, and the walls have been steep. See, when it comes to poetry, it is up to our interpretation regarding what has to be interpreted. So you can consider this in the context of a woman being harassed, not just women, it could be black men also. The night has been long, the wound has been deep, the pit has been dark, and the walls have been steep. So you can imagine the plight of a victim who is being, if it's a woman who has been sexually harassed, okay, or it could be a black man who is being beaten up. The wound has been deep. During the fight or the struggle, the wound that they have on their body is very deep. Deep cut, they say, means it has penetrated beyond the skin layer of the skin. The pit has been dark, means they are not treated in equal respect with that of other people, and the walls have been steep. Walls means you can consider it as preventive mechanism, or a kind of physical wall, or even a metaphorical wall, okay, which is steep, which have been steep means what, it is very tall, okay, it's very difficult to come out of this barrier. You can consider this as a physical wall also, or also a metaphorical barrier. So what do you understand by this first stanza? Here the poet tries to convey her experiences of being a black woman in specific, and black men in general. Means she's depicting the plight of black people. Either the night has been long, it could be they may be asked to work till late night, or even at night. The wound has been deep. The wound could be because of the beatings also, fights also, or because of the hard work. The pit has been dark, and the walls have been steep. The pit has been dark. It also could depict their residence also, the type of residence in which they were. Under a dead blue sky on a distant beach, I was dragged by my braids just beyond your reach. So here, the first stanza in general, when you read in isolation with that of other stanzas, we get to know that it could be a general opinion. But here, the second stanza explains, gives the context of the first stanza. So here, when we have a look at the second stanza, we get to know that the first stanza is actually the poet's own experience. Under a deep blue sky on a distant beach, I was dragged by my braids just beyond your reach. So she is addressing this to black men. Under a dead blue sky on a distant beach. Means she probably they would be staying near the coastal area. Okay, there some white men has dragged her using her hair. Braids means the knots that women tie, girls tie on their hair, just beyond your reach. Just beyond your reach means what? The way these white men have dragged her is beyond the reach of this black man. The black men are so helpless that they can't prevent the harassment to their own, to the women belong to their own family members, because they are helpless. If they protest, they will be killed. So they will be of the opinion that at least if I am alive, I can feed my family members. Therefore, without protesting, they too become silent. Your hands were tied, your mouth was bound, you couldn't even call out my name. So she is being empathetic towards the situation of the black men. See, any men would try to protect the women of his or his family, but the pathetic situation of this black man is, if they try to help, they will be killed. That is why she says, your hands were tied, mouth was bound, you couldn't even call out my name. Means even they could be, this black man could also be physically handled by the followers of the white man. You was I. She understands the situation of the black man. She is empathetic. Therefore, she says, you are helpless. But unfortunately, throughout history, you have worn a badge of shame. This is very much important. So she feels empathetic towards the black man. She says, unfortunately, this is not the only instance where you are feeling helpless. Throughout history, black men have worn the badge of shame. Why? Because they know that their wives are being harassed sexually, that their daughters are being harassed, that their mothers have been harassed sexually. But they have no other go. If they protest, they will be killed. In order to save their life, they are silent. In this context, she says, you have worn a badge. Shame on any man of the family when he is not able to prevent harassment to his own family members, women members of the family. I say it has been long, the wound has been deep, the pit has been dark, and the walls have been steep. Hopefully, if you visualize, she could be harassed in some dark place. That is what she is saying. Means throughout the night she was harassed. She is not, though she is talking about her own personal experience, she is picturizing or the experience of all black women, or what black women experience in general. But today, voices of old spirits sound speak to us in words profound across the years, across the centuries, across the oceans and the oceans across the seas. They say, draw near to one another, save your race. You are being paid for in a distant place. The old ones remind us that slavery's chains have paid for our freedom and again and again. So one thing you should understand, the slavery and all started, but slavery on the base of race started long back in the 15th, 16th century. And as generations perpetuated, now the situation of is much better when compared to their ancestors. In this context, she's saying, but today, voices of old spirits sound speak to us in words profound. Across the years, across the centuries, across the oceans and across the seas, they say, draw near to one another, save your race. So she's saying, when compared to the plights experienced by our ancestors, our situation is much better. Speak to us. Their experiences speak to us in words profound means intense words. Across the years, across the centuries, across the oceans, across the seas, they say, draw near to one another, save your race. So this is what she's saying, appealing to all the black people. She's saying these are the words by our ancestors. What is this? What is the guidance given by our ancestors? Irrespective of age, century, oceans means the place in which you live, unite yourself. That is the call given by the ancestors. Black across the world, divided on the basis of years. Years means age. Across centuries, generations, oceans and seas refers to distant places. So what are the ancestors insisting this younger generation of black people to do? To unite. You have been paid for in a distant place. What do you mean understand? You have been paid for in distant placements. The present day black people, for example, Barack Obama, his ancestors would have been slaves to somebody. But in the recent past, Barack Obama became the president of a nation where the blacks themselves were enslaved. Even today, the situation of the black is not that great. So even in his speech, he said he conveyed the opinion that the ancestors, the struggle put forth by the ancestors resulted in him, that is first black man being the president of America. You have been paid for the in the distant placements. In distant place, it could be in America also, or it could be in Africa also, older generation also, or in the past also. The plight, the sacrifice made by the old people, or the previous generation, has resulted in freedom of the present day black generation. The old ones remind us that slavery's chains have paid for our freedom again and again. This is important. So this is where she becomes more specific. She says the old people remind us that because of their slavery, or because of their fight against slavery, we have we are tasting or experiencing freedom. So the same thing is repeated here. The night has been long, the pit has been deep, the night has been dark, and the walls have been steep. So you can interpret in any ways. The hells we have lived through and live through still have sharpened our senses and toughened our will. So she says, the hells, the pathetic situation in which we lived earlier and still today we are living. The pathetic situation could be in terms of economy, means the poor situation, or in terms of how people are being treated. Okay, what our ancestors experienced, the same thing we too are also experiencing, have sharpened our senses and toughened our will. She says we have become more sensitive towards the issues of all this, and it has made increased our willpower. The night has been long. This morning I took through your anguish right down to your soul. I know that with each other we can make ourselves whole. I look through the posture and past your disguise and see your love of family in your big brown eyes. So here she is describing or addressing a black man here. She says, this morning I looked through your anguish. Anguish means what? Helpless anger. What again, it is up for your imagination or visualization. Let's say a black woman who has been taken on a previous day night by the white to harass, and the next day morning this woman comes. Okay, then what will be the plight of the black man? This look through your anguish. Anguish means what? Helpless anger. On the one hand, you are angry, but you are not able to express it. Right down to your soul. I know with each other we can make ourselves whole. She's saying it doesn't matter even if I am or black women are being sexually harassed, but in terms of soul, we are together. I look through the posture and past your disguise. Disguise means what? Even black man knows that his women is being harassed sexually, but he pretends as if he is unaware of it. I look through the posture and past your disguise and see your love for family in your big brown eyes. Despite the woman being harassed, he has this love for family. Despite not being able to help or not being able to save the women from being harassed, because of his helplessness, because if this black man protests and tries to help, he could be killed or he will be killed. In order to avoid, his main agenda is if at least he is alive, he can feed his family. Therefore the black man hesitates to protest or even try to help. I say clap hands and let's come together in this meeting ground. I say clap hands and let's deal with each other with love. And let us get from the low road of indifference. Clap hands, let us come together and reveal our hearts. Let us come together and revise our spirits, cleanse our souls. Let's leave the preening and stop imposing our own history. So now now till here she talked about the experiences of the black women and also black men. Now she is on a positive note. She is optimistic. What is that she says? Come, let us unite together in this meeting ground. What is the meeting ground? What is that unites all the black people? It is the slavery that their ancestors experienced in the past. What is that unites people of a particular country? It could be India, Nepal, or the past colonial colonies, British colonies. Is the freedom struggle that united people. So that becomes the meeting ground for us. Similarly, for black people, what is the meeting ground? The harassment and the racial discrimination that they experienced all these years becomes the meeting ground. Let's deal with each other with love. Let us get from the low road of indifference. She says we should avoid indifferences amongst ourselves. We should be united. Let us come together and reveal our hearts, revise our spirits, and cleanse our souls. Reveal our hearts means let us be truthful to ourselves. Revise our spirits means we should not get demotivated because of the repeated harassments that our ancestors have faced or the present generation is facing. We should revise our spirits. We should be more optimistic. We should not bother about the negative aspects. Cleanse our souls. Cleanse our souls. If we have anything wrong, we should clean it. Clap hands. Let's leave the preening. Preening means pride, prideness. Let us not feel have this negative pride and stop imposing our own history. Imposing means what? Falsely framing. Many times what happens, in order to motivate people, in order to unite people, people start talking uh, false history. They create history. Okay, that is what she is saying. Let us stop imposing our own history. Let us not avoid the fact. Let us not what do you say, camouflage the fact of our harassment. Let us accept that black people we were harassed, and now we will live the sense of a life of dignity. Clap hands, call the spirits back from the ledge. Clap hands. Ledge means an underwater ridge or rocks beneath seashore. Let us invite joy into our conversation, courtesy into our bedrooms, gentleness into our kitchen, care into our nursery. So invite men also. She's advising black men to be considerate towards black women. That's why she says, call the spirits from the ledge. Means, let's say many or most of the situations, people consider that God exists in river, fire, sky, all those things. That is what she is saying. Let us invite God from the river, rock in the river, invite joy into a conversation. As I told you, a black woman is harassed twice. Okay, it could be for because of being black and because of being a woman. So courtesy into our bedrooms, she could be addressing this to black men also and to black men also. Gentleness into a kitchen, care into a remains. She is trying to hint about the harmonious relationship that a black woman should have towards a black man should have towards a black woman. The ancestors remind us, despite the history of pain, we are going on people who will rise again and still we rise. So, what is that these black people can learn from the ancestors or the history of black revolution is that we are going on people, we will rise again. Means these black people, despite revolutions, despite protest, though many could be killed, but still the race continues to rise and the celebration of black people continues to rise. There is a concept called as negritude. Negrit, negritude. Negritude means celebration of blackness. It is in this context only. See, when everybody are criticizing people for being black, these black people celebrated. Yes, what is wrong in being black? we are proud of our color. They started celebrating it. So that concept is called as negritude. So in a gist, what one can understand from this poetry is that Maya Angelou appeals the present generation black people to unite. Okay, first in the initial part, she informs about the plights experienced by black women and black women in specific and black people in general. And then she talks about, and then she becomes optimistic. She calls for unity amongst all black people. She calls that, she mentions that one should give up differences, and one should have humanity within black people itself. So, and she ends with the optimistic tone, saying that despite black people being killed or harassed today, we continue to rise, we continue with our struggle, and we will one day rise again. So we can consider Barack Obama becoming the president of US as a climax of the struggle that these black people were part of. See, even earlier they were denied the civic rights like voting, okay, access to public places, all that, and such person coming from such history is historical. Okay. So what one should understand from this is one should not discriminate people on the basis of race,